Good afternoon and welcome to Connected Revelations on Freedom Revolution Network, where every week we talk all things health and wellness. The topics include lifestyle, dietary theories, supplements, herbs, devices, and so much more. We do want to point out that this show is for information only and should not be used as a medical advice. So please contact your healthcare provider before making any dietary changes. With that being said, let's dive into the show. Today we will be talking about one of the most popular dietary theories as of this moment, and we will discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you're probably wondering what this dietary theory is, because quite honestly, there's a lot of dietary theories out there right now. So before we get started, let's talk about what is a dietary theory. Well, essentially a dietary theory is a diet that someone has created based off of either their own success or based off of research that has seen success. So, there's a lot of different dietary theories out there, and there's more coming every single day. And if you were to look through all the different dietary theories out there, you would see some connection in regards to the different ways that people think. So essentially what we need to realize is that when we're talking about diet, we need to remember that each person is an individual, which means what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for me. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit more about why are they called theories. Well, basically, the dietary theory is going to be a theory because ultimately the science is never going to be settled based on what I just said. It's just everybody's so different that you're never going to have everybody pigeonholed into one place, other than the fact that we're all human. All right, so the diet that we're talking about today, let's see if you can guess what it is before I say. So this diet is high in fat, protein, and low carbohydrate. Now, if you were to think about that right now, there's a few different dietary theories out there that fall under that category. So this particular dietary theory focuses on basically forces the body to burn fat rather than carbohydrates. Have you figured out what dietary theory we're talking about yet? Normally, the carbohydrates contained in food are converted into glucose, which is basically a sugar. And then they're transported around the body, in particular, and for the brain. And basically, it's a fuel for your body, essentially. So with this dietary theory, you are to cut out basically all carbohydrates, and then your liver is forced to convert fats into fatty acids, which are called ketone bodies. And then the ketone bodies replace what the glucose would do in the body and as the energy source, essentially. So an elevated level of ketones in the body or in the blood is known as ketosis, as you will. And that is supposed to help basically your body burn the fat that's already on it. So it's a good theory. I mean, it's based off of some good science in regards to different things, but I want to note that there are potential side effects to this particular diet, which includes constipation, because there's not a lot of fiber involved, high cholesterol, growth slowing, if you're talking about kids, acidosis, where you get too acidic, and kidney stones. I'm not sure if you've ever had a kidney stone, but they're not fun. They're very painful. So a little bit more about keto. So what can you eat when you're on a keto diet? Well, fats. Basically, they prefer healthy fats. Of course, they like, salmon, avocado, olive oil, ghee, canola oil. But they also enjoy bacon on this particular diet too, which is a pork. Protein in moderate amounts. So you get to eat a little bit more protein. So if you're a meat lover, this is maybe a diet that you would be looking into. So they allow meat, poultry, fish, and eggs. Now, to talk a little bit more about protein in general, you can talk about meat, poultry, fish, and eggs, but I think that it's important to talk about sourcing of where you're getting your meat, your poultry, your fish, and your eggs. Because if your meat or these animals are eating food that is covered in pesticides, you're going to be eating their meat that has that same kind of content to it. So it's important to make sure that you're sourcing your meat ethically, that they're grass-fed, pastured, on non-pesticide foods or organic, grasses where there's no pesticides being placed. And in my personal opinion, which I can say because this is just my opinion, we're just talking about different things, it's soy-free whenever possible. So if you're looking for, poultry, you want soy-free feed, you want them to be pastured, you want them to be able to eat, they're omnivores, so they eat vegetables and they eat meat. So you want them to be able to eat bugs and worms and different things like that. For fish, you want to make sure that it's a fish that's low in mercury, but also wild. And then, of course, your poultry and your eggs are kind of together. So there's that. So they also allow non-starchy vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, leafy greens, green beans, radishes, asparagus, cucumbers, zucchini, spaghetti squash. They do allow cheese and other dairy, so butter, cream, plain Greek yogurt, and cottage cheese. And there's also nuts and seeds. Some of the lower carb choices include macadamia nuts, pecans, walnuts, sesame seeds, almonds, Brazil nuts, and pumpkin seeds. And then they do also allow you to have very dark chocolate and cocoa powder. So, and then they do allow some alcohol on this diet as well. So the things that they don't want you to eat on the keto diet are apricots, dragon fruit, peaches, nectarines, apples, grapefruits, kiwi fruit, kiwi berries. Have you actually had a kiwi berry? They're not that tasty, in my opinion. Oranges, plums, cherries, pears, figs, pineapples, mangoes, bananas, papayas, grapes, citrus, and all dried fruit. Essentially, they're just saying they're too high in sugar and you can't eat them. Vegetable-wise, they don't want you to eat potatoes, pumpkin, winter squash, yams, peas, corn, carrots, or parsnips because they're also high in carbohydrates. In regards to fats, they like you to stay to the healthy fats. The fats they want you to stay away from are canola, soy, corn, margarine, and fried foods. I'm not sure if you're aware, but legumes have high carbohydrates. So, they also want you to avoid grains and legumes like beans, chickpeas, lentils, dried peas, wheat, barley, oats, rye, quinoa, millet, sorghum, buckwheat, sprouted grains, pasta, rice, bread, and cakes. Makes sense to me. So the sugars that you can't have it says basically, he said you can't have anything sweet. So you can have soda, candy, donuts, cake, frosting, cookies, chocolate, jams, jellies, desserts, sweetened yogurts, or plain flavored milk. or sweetened. Okay. So the fat thing is interesting. So if you were to look at the fats that you want to actually have, or they're okay with, is animal fats, avocado oil, butter, cocoa butter, coconut oil, flax oil, ghee, hemp oil, lard, macadamia nut oil, mayonnaise, but you want the mayonnaise that is keto friendly, which would mean it would be made with avocado oil, olive oil, palm oil, peanut oil, pumpkin seed oil, red palm oil, tallow, tea seed oil, and walnut oil. So there's plenty of oils to choose from. Typically speaking, for me in my house, I'm not keto, or I haven't been keto up to this point. I still would use something within that fat category. It is interesting that they allowed dairy. I think some people go back and forth on that. And I think a lot of times when people are making the decision to change their diet, it's really difficult to know what to eat and what not to eat, essentially. So, it's really good to get yourself a food list. I see it all the time. I see that that's the one thing that people struggle with, is then they kind of get into this rut of eating the same thing over and over and over again. And then they get kind of sick of it, and they get cravings for something else, and then they end up, cheating on the diet or what they're trying to accomplish, and then things kind of go backwards. So, with that being said, there's a lot of different things. So, as we talk about this, I wanted to talk a little bit how the ketogenic diet is similar and different to, say, paleo or Atkins or any other high protein diet, low carb diet that's out there. So I'm going to look specifically at the difference between a paleo diet and a ketogenic diet. Mainly because I think that those are the two most popular diets at the moment. So we should talk about the difference between the two. So fundamentally, both paleo and keto diets plans are intended to rely on whole food sources of nutrition. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I don't know if you notice it on your, if you're ever on social media, but if you ever, say keto to, I don't know, someone else in the room, all of a sudden, on your social media, you're getting ads for all these different keto products. And you have to remember that these products, even though they're low in carbohydrates and high in protein, a lot of them are still processed, and that is not actually keto friendly. And I think it's really fascinating how no matter what whole food diet that comes into existence, there's always somebody coming up with a processed food version of it. So, with that being said, so basically they are based off of whole food source nutrition. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck when you're doing any sort of dietary change, is staying away from the processed foods. So a whole food is a food that has undergone a minimal amount of processing to get to your plate. So an example of a processed food is breakfast cereal. Basically anything that comes in a box, for the most part, is going to be a processed food. So both keto and paleo diets strongly encourage eliminating all ultra-processed foods and replacing them with whole foods like fresh vegetables, meats, fish, and nuts. This is especially evident with the exclusion of processed fats, oils, and sweeteners in both paleo and keto. So they both also eliminate grains and legumes, though for different reasons. Both paleo and keto diets strongly discourage eating grains and legumes. For the paleo crowd, This elimination is largely based on the fact that grains and ligaments were not likely part of the early human diet, and they contain anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients are compounds such as lectins or phthalates. They can be found in some plant-based foods. They interfere with your body's abilities to absorb minerals and nutrients and may cause digestive distress when eating in large quantities. So that is where something like sourdough would come into place. So essentially, if you soak your grains and your legumes prior to eating them, it basically breaks down the acid and the lectins to make it easier for you to digest. I actually have a really good friend who's in the middle of creating this great webinar on sourdough, and I want to have her on the show actually to talk a little bit more about sourdough because I think it's really, really important. And then we can link up her, it's a webinar, it's amazing. And I have to say, she taught me maybe 3 years ago how to do sourdough, and I am gluten-free, and so she taught me how to do gluten-free sourdough, and it is amazing. So it's really hard to find good gluten-free bread if you're going to eat it, and that girl, she will teach you how to do it. All right. So the keto diet also eliminates grains and most legumes because of the fact that they are carbohydrate containing. So essentially, they don't want any carbohydrates in your body because that will break down into glucose and that will take you out of ketosis. So grains and legumes can contribute to significant amounts of carbs in the diet. If you eat them while following the keto diet, you risk throwing your body out of ketosis, like I said. One of the differences between the paleo and the keto diets is the ideology message, or lack thereof. The paleo diet places a heavy emphasis on lifestyle choices beyond just the diet. It explicitly encourages a specific style of exercise and mindfulness in daily activities to accompany the dietary pattern. So essentially, they're looking at more of a mind-body soul connection there. So essentially, if you were to put them into a graph next to each other and compare paleo versus keto, you'd be looking at, for animal proteins, keto is a yes, paleo is a yes. If you're looking at healthy fats and oils, you're looking at keto is a yes and paleo is a yes. And then if you were looking at grains from a keto perspective, they don't allow grains, and paleo doesn't allow grains. Different theories on it, but essentially same idea. If you're looking at fruit, keto does allow only berries because they're a low sugar fruit, and then with paleo they allow less than 5%. So that's a little bit more of a game, I guess you got to play with, like figuring out what's 5% of my diet. It's kind of a silly thing that they come up with in the dietary theories, is that they make things complicated for people to really understand. So it's really difficult for them to actually implement the diet correctly into their life. So that's a challenge. Non-starchy vegetables are a yes and a yes on both sides of keto and paleo. Starch vegetables are a no in keto, but you can have less than 5% if you're paleo. So there's a little bit more flexibility there in the paleo side. Beans and legumes are a no and a no on both sides, both paleo and keto. And dairy. Dairy is a yes for keto and a no for paleo. So that is a big difference in between the two. And essentially, from my research and my understanding, is dairy can be very inflammatory. It can be very, it can cause some major problems, depending on where your dairy is coming from, essentially. But if you get a really good high-quality dairy and your body can handle it, that's awesome. I'm not that person right now. I can't do gluten or dairy right now as much as I would love to, because I like dairy. It tastes delicious. So they both allow for superfoods, and they both allow for bone broth. Have you ever made your own bone broth? Bone broth is so good when you make it yourself. And it's so easy to make. If you can find a farmer that's in your area that can get you bones, they're so inexpensive. If you were to go to the store and buy bone broth, it is ridiculously expensive. Like, seriously, if you want bone broth, you should just, send me a message and I can teach you how to make it. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what is ketosis and how do you know if you're actually in ketosis? Because that's kind of important. So what's really important is, or ways to tell that you are in ketosis is you may have a dry mouth or increased thirst. The combination of restricted carbs and ketones production will cause your body to lose water at a rapid rate, so you're more likely to become dehydrated. If you are not drinking enough water during this process, you will typically have a dry mouth and increased thirst. So basically, make sure you're drinking enough fluid when you're on the diet to make sure that you don't get dehydrated. This is a good sign that will tell you if you're on track to the ketosis. But you notice these signs. Make sure you increase your water intake. Don't let the dry mouth or thirst linger too long. If you do, you may become dehydrated and experience a variety of unpleasant symptoms. People say you drink your body weight in ounces a day. And that's general thought process in regards to how much water you should drink. Some people say a gallon a day, some say, so just drink water. The other thing is, it's quality of water. And then it's not just water, because water alone isn't going to help. If your electrolytes are off, you're going to need minerals involved, and that becomes a whole nother story. But that is a different podcast than today. So, on to the next thing. The next thing that you may notice if you're in ketosis is you have bad breath. Yes, that sounds like a great diet. Let's go on the diet so I can have bad breath. As your body's getting basically adjusted to being the ketone production, acetone will tend to spontaneously form since it can be used as fuel to our cells. We excrete it from our body in urine and through our breath. This is why many keto dieters will have bad breath, or keto breath as it's called. Very attractive. That will sometimes smell sharp or pungent, like overripe fruit or nail polish remover. Fortunately, the bad breath won't last forever. As your body gets better at producing and using ketones, it will create much less acetone. In other words, if you stick with keto diet, the smell of your breath will return to normal. Essentially, your body will get used to the fact that it doesn't have carbohydrates. Keep in mind, however, there have been that having bad breath does not mean that you're in ketosis. Ketosis breath is simply an indicator that you will soon be in ketosis if you continue to do what you're doing. I think it's a really tricky diet, generally speaking, because essentially you're trying to get your body to completely change the way that it is, and depending on how well the systems in your body are working, this could be a very dangerous diet to be on, to be honest. I mean, I remember, people can be very insulin resistance and different things, and it can be a real struggle getting there, especially if they have diabetes or something like that. The third one is increased urination. Carbohydrates restriction and the ketones are both natural diuretics, which so when you first start keto dieting, you may have more frequent bathroom trips as your body's insulin levels decrease and you release more water and sodium as a result. After a couple days, the bathroom trips may continue as you start the process to produce more ketones. The phenomenon is pretty reliable, a reliable sign that you will be entering ketosis as long as you keep up what you're doing. So number 4, reducing hunger and appetite suppression. So one of the great things about keto is that because of the high protein and fat content in the diet, you end up having a reduced hunger and appetite, and your appetite is suppressed. And essentially that's based because you have enough, substance there for you to be able to feel full. Ketogenic is one of the best diets for reducing hunger and causing people to eat fewer calories without realizing it. In many ways, a keto diet is the perfect recipe for weight loss. It focuses on highly satisfying foods like meat, fish, cheese, and low carbohydrate vegetables, while also stimulating the body to use fuel sources like ketones that are more effective than the sugars. Once you are in ketosis, the most likely you're going to feel energized for longer periods of time between meals. You may even end up skipping a meal without realizing it because your body is having no problem with fueling itself on ketones, fat, and sugar produced by the body. Don't get me wrong. You won't lose your appetite altogether, but it will take hours and hours before you start to feel the hungry feeling. You may also find that you naturally start eating smaller portions as well. The change in appetite can be caused by many reasons, but being in ketosis plays a major role in reducing the hunger as well. When you are in ketosis, your body will be using more effective energy sources than sugar. With a highly availability of efficient fuel sources and increased ability to use them, your body will require fewer calories to sustain itself. This transition to less hunger between meals and reduces appetite. So I decided that this month I was going to try out the ketogenic diet simply because I thought it was interesting. I'd heard a lot about it. And I kind of go back and forth on whether or not I think it's a good diet for me specifically. So I was like, all right, I will try it for a month and see how it goes. And so far, it's been okay. I mean, I'm not super hungry. But I'm not really seeing much difference. So I'm not even sure that I'm in ketosis, which is why we need to move on to the next topic, because there is a topic that I want to talk to at the end of how you can tell if you're in ketosis or not, besides these anecdotal things that we're coming up with here. So another, number 5, is digestive issues can kind of come up. By digestive issues, I mean problems with bowel movements. As you are adapting to the keto diet, your body will react in one of 3 ways. You can get constipation, where you may go days without going to the bathroom due to the change in mineral levels, hydration status, and fiber intake that are common with the keto diet. The simple solution may be to add low-carb vegetables to each meal, drink plenty of water, and or supplement with extra fiber, sodium, potassium or magnesium if needed. You may get diarrhea. Both restricting your carb consumption and burning ketones for fuel can change how much water your body holds onto and excretes. The combination of limiting carbs and being in ketosis can indirectly lead to more water loss through your intestines, which leads to diarrhea. And then there can be no change at all. Ketosis doesn't necessarily have to change your digestive issues or cause digestive issues. If you are still going regularly with normal stools, then keep doing what you're doing. For those of you who are constipated or experiencing diarrhea during the first week of keto, this may be an indicator that you are in ketosis or on track of being in ketosis. If you only have one of these digestive issues without any other symptoms in the article, then your issues are more so related to lack of fiber, minerals, and or water, and not increasing the ketone levels. So essentially I feel like a little bit of a crapshoot in the sense, like you think you're doing it, but you don't know, and how do you know, and all of these different things, so it can be a little bit thing. And another thing that you can kind of end up having is short-term fatigue is what they call it. Before your liver starts increasing ketone production and you experience the benefits of ketosis, you may experience a decrease in physical and mental performance. This is one of the keto conundrums that can occur in your first week of the keto dieting. The good news is that the short-term fatigue indicates that your body is on the path to ketosis. As your body adapts to the carb restriction and ketones burning, you will experience a sustainable amount of energy and clarity that you may never experience before keto dieting. So I've been mainly a paleo girl over the last several years, and I've been running for the last 3 years, and essentially I don't know that I'm noticing that much of a difference in regards to my stamina when I run versus when I was running before. I don't know that I'm noticing any of these signs. So potentially my body just isn't in ketosis even though I'm following all the rules. I don't know. Do you know? Seriously. Okay, so another thing that can happen is insomnia. Insomnia or lack of sleep may be experienced when you're first adapting to the keto diet. You may find that you struggle to fall asleep, waking up in the middle of the night, and or not getting a full night's rest. Well, that sucks. Makes me want to do the keto diet. On our biochemical level, the phenomenon occurs because carb restriction causes stress hormones to be elevated before ketone production is ramped up. So essentially your body's like, what's happening? I'm not getting the fuel I need, and it's freaking out. So essentially, it freaks out first, and then it moves into adapting to having to use a different way of living. The next thing is after you get through the insomnia and the short-term fatigue that you can have, guess what you can have next? You can have increased focus and energy. I'm still getting there, I feel like. So once your body starts to burn more ketones for fuel, you will need less and less sugar, and your energy levels will be more stable throughout the day. This may manifest itself as a newfound capacity for focus for extended periods of time, or the ability to make it through the day without an afternoon coffee or nap. However, the experience of newfound mental clarity and endurance, our bodies need to start producing ketones consistently first. For some, this may take a couple of days of keto eating, while others it may not get to ketosis until a week to a week and a half has passed. Once the liver starts pumping out ketones regularly, if I could speak properly, that would be awesome. It may take another couple of weeks or months before you have reached your full ketone burning potential. In other words, when you first start keto, you may feel fatigued. Once you start producing ketones, and the mental and physical fogginess will drift away and be replaced by more energy and mental clarity. After a couple of weeks to a month, you will be able to burn your ketones like a machine and experience almost all of the wonderful benefits according to the wonderful people at the keto-diet stuff. So essentially, eventually you will experience weight loss. Although ketosis is not necessarily for weight loss to occur, or not needed for weight loss to occur, losing weight rapidly while restricting carbs is still a good sign that you are on the right path to ketosis. While you are on the ketogenic diet, you will typically lose a couple of pounds of water weight along with some fat in the first week. This shows that your insulin levels are dropping significantly, setting your body up for ketone production. As long as you stick with the diet, it's suggesting that you will eventually start to lose weight on it. Your ketone tracking methods. So essentially, how are you supposed to know if you're in ketosis? I mean, maybe you have bad breath, maybe you don't. Maybe you have diarrhea, maybe you don't. Maybe you have constipation, maybe you don't. So essentially, they have a couple different things that you can do to track your ketones. And one is you can do urine strips to see if there's any ketones in the urine. You can get a breath ketone meter. They're more accurate than the urine strips, but can sometimes vary in accuracy, cheaper than blood test strips in the long run. And then the other thing you can do is a blood ketone meter. This is the most accurate keto measuring method available to the public, but the strips are extremely expensive. Most people will be in the light ketosis within 2 to 3 days of dieting, so this would be a good time to test yourself using one of these methods. It is also important to know that it typically takes 2 to 3 weeks to get into deep ketosis. Deep ketosis is ideal for weight loss and may confer some neurological benefits that extend beyond the benefits that you'll get when you are in light and medium ketosis. The only way for you to accurately find out if you are deep in ketosis is to use a blood ketone meter. But you don't need to drive yourself crazy with the ketone measurements. Your success will not be determined by getting the most accurate ketone readings. So another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about was all these different keto products where you can actually take ketones, and what is the point of taking a ketone versus like producing a ketone yourself. So essentially, from what I'm understanding from reading about it, is that they're suggesting that even having a ketone in there, even if it isn't you who created it, that you're going to have you're going to be able to get to ketosis faster, according to that. So like if you need to have a reset, that's why they created this product. So some of the things that they're saying are linked to being on a ketogenic diet is ketones stimulate mitochondrial production. What is a mitochondrial? Basically, it's what makes up your body. New mitochondrials are formed in a cell after being burning more ketones for fuel. Why does this matter? Because more mitochondrial means more energy and healthier cells. Essentially, it's just stimulating your body to kind of get rid of the nasty cells and bring in new ones. Ketosis protects and regenerates the nervous system, Many studies have found that ketones have preserved the function of aging nerve cells and stimulated the regeneration of damaged and dysfunctional brain cells. For example, one study found that ketones helped patients with acute brain injuries improve significantly. If you'd like to take a closer look at this, I can link an article for you. Ketones act like an antioxidant. Burning ketones for fuel reduces the number of reactive oxygen species and free radicals that are produced as a result of energy production. This helps protect the body from the damage of the disease. Another thing that people are saying that it does is ketones preserve muscle mass. When you lose muscle mass, you lose vital years from your life. This is an unpleasant side effect of aging. However, a keto diet may be the remedy. This is where you come into theories. People are saying many studies have found that ketones have a muscle preserving effect. This effect will essentially be especially prevalent in people who were restricting calories to lose weight. Not only does this make the ketogenic diet and ketosis a great fat loss tool, but also longevity enhancer as well, according to this person here. Ketones help reduce hunger. We've already talked about that. Essentially, it just makes you less hungry. And then another thing that people say out there is that ketones help prevent the cancer growth. Essentially, people are trying to say that, are suggesting that it's due to the fact that most cancer cells can't use ketones as fuel, so they eventually end up dying off because they get weak and the immune system finally can eliminate them from the body. This is just information. I'm not here to cure cancer, but rather to give information about it. I wanted to reiterate the different things that they said that would tell you that you're in ketosis: dry mouth, increased thirst, bad breath, increased urination, decreased hunger and appetite, digestive issues, short-term fatigue, insomnia, increased focus and energy, weight loss, and make sure you use a tracking device for it. I want to be very clear that there's a lot of different theories out there when it comes to diets. This is simply one. I don't back a specific diet because everybody is an individual. And if you're an individual that doesn't do well with meat, then this diet is definitely not going to be for you. There's other risk factors involved. Make sure you're speaking with your healthcare professionals and making sure that you're making a good decision in regards to what diet you want to take, because essentially the foods that you eat are going to fuel your body or hurt your body depending on what it is. And if there's something that I've learned over the years, it's that just because something seems healthy or is healthy doesn't mean that it necessarily is for you. Cannot tell you how many times I've had people talk to people who've started doing things that are generally considered healthy but ended up not being good for them. So it's really important to make sure that you are being diligent in the choices that you're making in regards to your food, in regards to your lifestyle, the exercises you're trying to do or doing, to make sure that you're not hurting yourself and you're helping yourself, because it would really suck to make a decision that ended up hurting yourself. So I wanted to tie into calorie counting with keto, because essentially a lot of the foods that you're eating on a keto diet really are high calorie foods. So how much food should you be eating, or how many calories should you be taking if you're going to look at it from a caloric intake perspective? Not typically a perspective I like to look at, because I don't count calories. But essentially, I think essentially what they were saying is that if you eat 1,800 calories in ketosis, you're burning 1,000 calories with the ketosis in general. Now, that can come or go. So essentially, it just depends on your individual body, generally speaking, in regards to what it is that your body needs. So, ketogenic diet, paleo diet, Atkins diet are, all high protein diet things. And, and I've certainly heard of people who have had allergies to meat. You're looking at diabetics whose body can't create insulin and do different things. So I think that it's important to remember that there's always an exception to the rule, that just because this is good for some people, it doesn't mean it's good for other people. And there are different things that can happen in your body that can make it difficult for you to be able to break down protein. And if you can't break down protein, it's really hard on your liver. And we don't want to cause problems for our liver. So it's really important that you are talking to a healthcare professional or making sure that your body is healthy prior to trying any one of these dietary theories out there. There's hundreds of them. So I'm really excited to hear from listeners about what they think about the ketogenic diet, if they have any questions, if, what they want to know about the ketogenic diet, essentially. So I hope that you enjoyed this overview of what the ketogenic diet is, how it works, different foods that are associated with it, as well as getting just a basic understanding of why this dietary theory exists and whether or not you think that it's interesting or not. Because frankly, everybody's hearing about keto right now. Everybody's talking about it. A lot of people are trying it. It's really interesting how many people will jump on the bandwagon and get results. So it's really interesting to me what down the road will look like 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Are these people still going to be keto? Are they going to be back to normal? Will they have kept the weight loss that they're getting? Will they be having trouble with their liver? Will they be having trouble with their pancreas? Will they be, essentially, as we kind of monkey around with what we put into our body, there is always a chance that it could go one direction or the other. So it's always important to make sure that you are paying attention to that. Next week, I think that we will do something even more interesting or different. It probably won't be based off of, I'm going to try and go more medical device next week and talk a little bit about different alternative medical devices that people have found to use for weight loss or detoxification or other things like that. So I think next week we're going to be talking about infrared saunas and saunas in general, about the good, the bad, and the ugly with those as well, because with everything comes risks and benefits. So with that being said, thank you for listening to Connective Revelations on Freedom Revolution Network, where every week we talk about all things health and wellness. The topics include lifestyle, dietary theories, supplements, herbs, devices, and so much more. Please remember to consult your medical professional before trying anything discussed on this show. I am not a medical provider, and I am not providing any medical advice. We are only discussing products and ideas that are out there and a way to learn about them. So we appreciate you being here, and we will talk to you next week. Thank you.